Hi, so today I want to give you a walkthrough of how I was able to help my company increase the annual recurring revenue by over $300,000 as a customer success manager due to a simple glitch in our company system. Let me walk you through what happened. Like you see, this data right here is a 2-year projection of our company's revenue, right? What is going to happen, what the finance team thinks we'll be making in the next 2 years. Now, due to a glitch in our company system, this data landed on my laptop, right? Now, of course, I was supposed to return it to the finance team because there's nothing I'm doing with it. But something caught my attention. You see, I realized that this data they are all linked with each other with formulas in such a way that if you update one metric, the entire numbers changes, right? And I realized that there was actually one number, one metric that was so fundamental that the exponential difference it made was mind blowing. And that was the churn rate, 2.1% churn rate. Now, you see, as a customer success manager, I knew our churn rate was 2.1%, but I never had an idea on the kind of impact it had on our company's revenue based on forecast and everything. So I was like, you know what? What if I run a simulation and say, let me even drop this thing from 2.1% to saving something like 1.8%? I mean, that's saving like an extra 36 customers every month, right? My God. If you see the exponential difference, I knew I had to present this data to the higher ups, right? To those that are making the decisions in the company. So let me just give you a quick backstory on what my company is. So basically, we are a B2B SaaS software, right? That sell a $13 per month software. We have the enterprise and the individual and the enterprise, right? Because you can see, and we charge enterprises based on users in the company. And you can see that we have a gross margin of 83%. Our CAC is 905. Our current CAC is $905. We have a payback period, right, of 15 months, right? Our monthly churn rate, of course, 42% per month. Then we have a lifetime of 47.6, almost 48 months, right? Then these are also, of course, this is not the real data of our company. We never leak our company real data. But I'm just showing you, this is just a simulation of what it is. Anyways, so that's just some of our numbers, right? Now, for me to be able to present this data in such a way that it makes sense to the higher ups about what I'm trying to communicate, I have to first of all format the data because it's unformatted, right? So the first thing I did was to split it into one version for the 2.1% and another version for the 1.8% churn rate, right? Then when I did that, I used Power Query in Excel to append the data so that there can be a side-by-side comparison. Then when I did that, I used Power BI to I took the data to Power BI where I was able to create a visualization that I can show to our higher hubs to walk you through the data that I got. I promise you're gonna be mind blown just how little things can compound and create such a massive difference. And so as you can see, let me start from the very first part, which was the monthly revenue, the MRR, right? Now, at a 2.1%, now, before I go into that, you can see that there are two colors. The darker color is the 2.1% churn rate, stays at 2.1% churn rate, while the lighter blue color is things at 1.8% churn rate after I did all my analysis. Now, as you can see, at 2.1% churn rate, the company was projected to be earning of $474,000 in MRR after the 2 years based on the projections. But by just saving an extra around 36 customers every month, that increased to over $500,000. An increase of $30,000, over $13,000. Can you imagine that? Okay, now let's move to the ARR, the annual recurring revenue. Based on the projection, the company was supposed to reach an annual recurring revenue of 5.6 million, right? After 2 years. But now, due to that, by dropping the churn rate to 1.8%, it was over 6 million in ARR. That was an increase of $365,000. Like, can you imagine the exponential difference? Now, let's go to another thing. In fact, I'm going to get to the GCS part very soon. I just want you to walk through. I'm going like this so that you can see what I'm trying to pass across. Now look at the net customer retained. By the end of 2 months, right, and 2 years, I mean, we're supposed to have retained about 36,550 customers. Now we're able to retain 38,809 and 894 paying customers that are paying us every month by that 2 years. Like that was an increase of 243,000, 434 customers, an increase by just decreasing the churn rate from 2.1% to 1.8%. Imagine an extra 2,000 paying customers by just doing that. That is something any CSM should be able to do. Now let's move to the next thing, the gross profit, right? By the end of 2 years, the company was supposed to make a gross profit of about $394,000, right? Now they are making over $400,000 in gross profit, an increase of $25,000, more money to spend on marketing, more money to spend on business, any other thing that they want to do. Now, okay, look at, based on, I want you to look at our CAC ratio. I'm already getting to the GCS part. Just bear with me. Now, you see, based on the projection that the finance team did, the CAC ratio was supposed to be dropping by at least $5 every month, right? Yeah, based on the marketing team efficiency and sales team efficiency, customer success team efforts and all, the CAC was projected to be dropping by $5 every month. You can see that even though we had used the CAC, the churn rates, we are still able to maintain that CAC ratio that is falling by $5 every month. We are still able to maintain it. Now, you're going to understand why that matters as we move on. Now, look at the LTV revenue, right? How much you're supposed to be making per customer by the end of the 2 years was supposed to be $4,000, right? But now we are making $4,600. That was an average. That's an increase of $668 that we are making extra, right? Just so you know, this is gross profit. So the company is making could make an extra $668 in lifetime revenue by just dropping the churn rate from 2.1% to 1.8%. Now, here is what I want you to look at this. Now, you see, the company, based on our 2.1% churn rate, take a look at this. This is the juicy part I'm talking about. Now, you see, based on the fact that we have 2.1% churn rate now, the company already has a good LTV to CAC ratio of 3:1, which is the gold standard for every SaaS company, of course. Now, don't forget, the darker blue line is representing our current churn rate of 2.1%, while the lighter blue line is representing what things become when they are at 1.8% churn rate. At 2.1% churn rate, now we can see that at the January, we already have a LTV to CAC ratio of 3:1, right? And at the end of 2 years, we are projected to hit 5:1 CAC ratio, which is already insane. I mean, so many companies cannot even get to that level. But now look at this. Let's say we had an LTV to CAC ratio of 1.8%, and we had a churn rate of 1.8%. Our LTV to CAC ratio is already entering an astonishingly high 4:1%, 4:1 LTV to CAC ratio. Like, can you imagine? Now, look at, we are supposed to reach an LTV to CAC ratio by December of 2026. That is based on the 2.1% churn rate. But can you believe that when we drop the churn rate to 1.8%, we had already reached that by April of 2026, 8 months prior to where it was already planned? Do you know the kind of massive leverage that gives the company? The company can do so much, can spend so much on marketing, this is massive, massive leverage. And by just dropping the churn rate to 1.8%, we can already reach there 8 months prior to. That means the plans that we're supposed to be making 8 months, we can now start making them 8 months prior. Now, you will see how this tie into so much. Now, let's go to the marketing cost. Now, you can see the company. One more thing about our company is that our company, we are still trying to scale. We are still in the negative zone, right? We're a startup, still trying to scale. So, we are still in our operating expense is still in the negative zone. I can see that our marketing cost has been rising, right? Even when we decrease the churn rate from 2.1% to 1.8%, the marketing cost was still rising. You can see it even more. This just shows that we have more money to spend. You could see that before we were spending about almost 300,000, right? Based on the overall 2 years, we also spent about 300,000 on marketing. But now we are doing scale past that. Now you will see why this is important. Let me show you why it's important. Now, remember I said our company is a startup and we are still innovative soon, right? Our operating income, right, over the next 2 years, right, while being on the path to profitability, our operating income, you can see the darker blue line. It was supposed to be by drop to about, minus $110,000 by that 2 years. That is, you can see that it's rising though because of marketing costs and expensive, but we were still on the path to profitability. I can see that it's even peaked. There was even a peak, but then let me now show you. Let me now show you what happens when we drop the churn rate from 2.1% to. You can see that our operating expenses actually goes higher. It peaks about almost 140,000 minus $140,000. That's just show that we're able to spend more money. There's more money. We can squeeze out more money from the retained customers to still continue to do what we are doing. Even though we can now, due to the fact that we now have 5 to 1 LTV to CAC ratio, we can now spend more on marketing. We can now do so many things for the company to scale so good, so fast that they might even probably end up dominating their industry. You understand? So because we're able to drop the CAC from 2.1%, you can start to see how this compounds into some kind of massive leverage. Now let's go, let's move on. I'm not even done yet. Now, remember I said that our company, even though we are still losing money, we are on the path to profitability. Here's an interesting thing. Based on our projection, the company is supposed to reach profitability. You can see that the negative is this is our EBIT, right? The earnings before interest and tax. That means how much we are making, or how much we are making after interest and tax, before how much we are earning before interest and tax. As you can see, we are being, due to the fact that our company is getting more and more efficient, marketing team, everybody is getting more efficient, it's actually dropping. So we're about to reach profitability, right? After a few months after that 2 years. Now, you will think that since our operating income already gone up, it's supposed to take longer for us to reach profitability, right? Since we are spending more money than we are supposed to be spending. So, no. The data show that even though we dropped our 1.8% churn rate from 2.1% to 1.8%, we are still on track to reach profitability at the proposed timeline. All while being able to gain more customer, have so much metrics that is so enviable to investors and all. Like imagine submitting to an investor that you have 5 to 1 LTV to CAC ratio. Just imagine. You think they would rush to fund the company. Now, what does all this mean? It means because we're able to drop our churn rate from 2.1% to 1.8%, we're able to have an extra 13,000, right? We're able to spend an extra 13,000 in our operating income, right? And we're able to acquire more customers. That means we're able to retain more customers, about over 2,000. And this led to an increase of 668 LTV increase for each customer. That means we're making an extra $600 profit from each customer. Now, that is just one side of it, of the profit. Now, imagine we decide to scale rapidly. Imagine we decide to go big scaling on marketing spend. Remember, we now have an astonishingly high LTV to CAC ratio of, if I remember right, 5 point, it's actually 6 to 1. If I remember, yes, you can see by the time it had just reached 5%, 5 to 1 year, it had already reached 6 to 1. That means for every dollar we're spending on a customer, we're making 6 times back. Can you imagine? That means we could afford to introduce initiatives like free trials, explore new marketing channels, right? Even at the risk of our CAC spiking. Because I think the LTV to CAC ratio of the gold standard of most SaaS companies is 3 to 1. 3 to 1, yeah. Now imagine you having done that. Like you could afford to do things most cannot do. You can afford to go big scale your marketing. You can even afford to, maybe your payback period, you afford to increase your prices. You can afford to there are so many things you could do, all because we're able to drop our LTV to CAC ratio and our churn rate from 2.1% to 1.8%. So able to start to see, at this